Welcome back. This is Another Man's Shoes, and we're live at HR4K in Hereford for this episode. So we went on site and we met up with Ben. We'll talk a bit more about that in a sec. As we mentioned, this is recorded live at the actual showroom of HR4K, so there was a couple of interruptions while people came and went, but we've left that all in there, so it's raw and unfiltered. But enjoy this one. We did. See you on the other side. Yeah. Welcome back to Season 3 of Another Man's Shoes podcast. We're here in Hereford at the HR4K shop. We've got the owner, Ben Garwood, entrepreneur. God, I don't know how to describe it. I mean, he's got multiple businesses, veteran, SAS, REME, Parachute Regiment, back to the REME. He's like bounced around everywhere, and we're going to hear about this shortly. And we're actually recording this episode, so this will be going up live on YouTube. And as you can see in the backdrop on the video, I mean, this is a hell of a show. What do you call it? Is it a shop? A showroom?
Man cave. Fucking Valhalla.
Mate, it is Valhalla. I mean, I got to be honest, looking around here, you don't need Viagra. You come into this place, mate, you just get instantly hard. It is alley as fuck, Before we start, we've actually brought you a little present. So
Yeah, you said.
Yeah, so basically, bit of a dip behind it then. So me and Adam, we were at Duxford for the parachute sort of team into Caratan, Normandy, out of the Dakotas.
Cool.
I unfortunately I couldn't jump on that particular jump, but Adam did. Anyway, a lady came up to us and she had stuff that she wanted us to jump with. Basically, her father or grandfather, was it father or grandfather? Dad, jumped into Normandy back in 1944 into Caratan, so or one of the DZs out there anyway. And so she asked us, she gave us 2 coins. She asked us to jump with both. We had to give one back to her, and then she let us keep the other one. And we brought that coin along with us today, and we'd like you to accept it and obviously put it up somewhere.
Yeah, man.
And here's that coin now, Ben.
Oh,
there you go, mate.
Hey, thank you very much.
Welcome, mate.
Cheers. Yeah. Hey, cheers, mate.
Thank you. Yeah.
My granddad was actually at Peggy Bridge. He went in on the gliders, 6th Airborne Division with the Ulster Rifles. So this is very cool. Yeah, very, very cool.
We went back. I took my daughter to Peggy Bridge earlier in the summer after everyone had gone home after the D-Day celebrations, remembrance. And it's amazing, the next generation explaining what those before us have gone through.
Yeah.
I think it's really important to keep the memory alive, but not just from the First World War, Second World War, in every conflict up to now, because people are still struggling and the effects are felt through families, throughout the world, throughout the country. And I think we'll touch on that because obviously from a mental health point of view and just years later, how people are still affected by what's gone before.
Well, I mean, obviously we had Arnhem the other weekend, and it's a duty for the kids in Arnhem to actually look after and tend the graves. And you saw at Arnhem this year, the DZ, I mean, this is the biggest turnout I've ever seen. Yeah. The amount of civilian population. Yeah. And they're so grateful for what was a conflict that we actually lost. We lost the Battle of Arnhem because obviously poor J2 and everything else that came with it, and bad weather, etc. And the people of Arnhem, they suffered off the back end of it, when the Brits were left and some of them were captured. Yeah. Yet they're still grateful for what was achieved there, and actually see it in, I think it's Crete as well. There's massive gratefulness of the locals there, and they still celebrate the Fallschirmjäger, even though the Fallschirmjäger were German. They actually treat the locals good, and how that sort of echoes in eternity, if you like, taking a quote from Gladiator, is Sally as shit, isn't it?
It is, mate. It is.
Mega, thank you.
You're welcome, mate.
Anytime. So what we'll do, Martin, is sort of take the podcast stuff and sort of roll on back at the beginning.
What we tend to do is like roll it back, and just, where you were born, what school you went to, your sort of childhood, and then we'll just build it up and go through as we go along. So just take us back to sort of, young Ben, where were you born and stuff?
I was born in Cornwall. So my old man worked at the psychiatric hospital down there. That's where he met my mum. And
patient or working?
Yeah, both, I think, actually. And my mum was down there. She was getting away from her ex-husband, and she had 2 kids and my 2 older brothers, and she met my dad. My dad was down there. He'd left the city, worked in the city, and then went down there, just wanted that sort of Cornwall life, country life.
Yeah.
He got a job in Bodmin at the psychiatric hospital. They had me. And, it was hard times for the pair of them. My mum was a young woman with 2 kids, and they didn't really have the same welfare, and the culture of throwing your kids into welfare wasn't the same. So they were obviously trying to look after my 2 brothers, and then they had me, and they're both running 2 jobs. My dad was poaching on the side just to make sure there's a bit of food and money coming in. And then my old man, actually, he came up here to come and get a job at the psychiatric hospital here in Hereford, and was going to apply for 2-3. And then it was just, it was all hard work for them to thinking about, could I join the TA? Could I get a bit of extra money in? And actually the traveling and everything else, he just thought, do you know what I've got to do? Just go join the regular army. And he, because of his medical background within the psychiatric world, he decided to join the Med Corps, and then obviously worked his way up as a private soldier. And as you probably would have seen in, your depots, you would have seen some guys who joined a little bit later.
Yeah.
And they're very different breed, the guys who are there. They've got a bit more about them. A lot of the DS often give them a bit more responsibility.
That's right. Yeah.
So, it was quite difficult for them, as I said, being a private soldier, a family of 3 kids. My mum's trying to do her nursing training. And then he slowly worked his way through the ranks, used the military for its advantage to get the kids into school, paying for school fees. And then as he went up the ranks, life got a bit easier for us. So, and I then became a product of being a pads brat, really.
Yeah. But installed into you from an early age was obviously that work ethic, integrity. It sounds like, but you had a loving family.
Yeah. And I think that's important. I think you get a lot of, a lot of these podcasts, and you hear these stories of these, pretty harsh upbringings. And sometimes I think we got to be honest and be grateful for,
That's right.
Some of us are very, very lucky to have, very loving parents who work their tits off to provide and look after their families. And I was, and I'm very, very grateful for that. Yeah. I think also being a pads brat, that there's all these blocks that make up who you are, and you see it as you get older, and you meet these different personalities, and you can see the characteristics of people of how they grew up. As I was a pads brat and we were moving around a lot of the place, went to different schools, I had to make friends quickly. I had to fit in, but in your own way. So I wouldn't necessarily conform, but you can, you can find common ground with people.
Yeah,
and I think that's more of an honest way of putting it. And that's what I had to do. And then eventually I went to boarding school, went to Duke of York's military school.
Yeah, my kids went to Duke of York.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What house?
So Faye was in Kitchener. No, sorry, William was in Kitchener, and Faye was in Allenbrook.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So
understood, yeah, so I was there just before they introduced the girls, years after I left. I was in Hague, and then I went to Wolseley.
Okay.
And it's a crazy school because, as you know, I think my dad was a sergeant at the time, corporal sergeant, and I was at school with, Farrah Hockley, General Farrah Hockley's kids, and but it was classless.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a bit like what the group was, it was classless. It was about everyone working together, and, everyone had to wear a uniform, so you didn't really see people who were better off than others or had more money. There wasn't, it was awesome. And, you also at that school, and also looking at the pads estates, you learn to sink and swim, and I think that's really important for kids. I think it helps you identify where you are in society. Are you going to be a victim? Can you learn to shut the fuck up? Can you learn to an authoritative figure? Can you conform? All these other things you need to do. Yeah. And I think it really sets you up for life and probably matures you more than probably some of the state schools and other things.
And you can interact with people. You can just walk into a room at a young age and talk to anyone, start a conversation, and not just sort of clam up, which we've noticed out of our kids, the way we've always been sort of like, go and talk to people, get yourself out there, watch the news. So you can sit there and have a topic conversation. You've got like something to start with. And I think that's something that's missing in society now, where kids are just on their mobile phones, on TikTok, and they're very insular. Yeah. And I think maybe it's our generation, because we didn't have that and we were out and about.
Well, we spoke earlier, and we were talking about mental health, and we talked about how it's become more common, and we talk about men talking now and engaging and communicating. And I think actually where it's the irony of being more connected because you have a mobile phone has actually made us less connected personally.
Yeah.
You know, we've got people, as you know, we've talked about before, who've probably never had a slap, you know, and they can be as hard as they want online, and they can do all these, you know, keyboard warriors.
Right.
And actually what they're losing is real social interactions and these things. And I think years ago, or not even that far long ago, I think where people of our age group, we were still drinking in pubs.
Yeah.
We spent more time in pubs because that was our social scene where we'd meet up with each other. You'd always check in with your mates. Where's, you know, we normally meet him down here after work on a Friday or whatever. Where is he? Where now you're still connected, but you're probably not really, you're missing out on those small nuances of, we're talking, but you haven't really given them much away.
Yeah.
Where actually, mate, you're not your same. You're not yourself.
Yeah.
You know, you can pick up.
Very true.
Things. And I think obviously through those things and drinking, we are offloading. We're more confident to offload and open up. Where now mental health has really come to the forefront. And I think a lot of people have jumped on the bandwagon for good reasons. But actually, I think we're really missing out on some really obvious things. And I think that's just people talking, you know, as in person, meeting up, going for a beer, shooting the shit, go and do something, you know? Yeah. So going back to school, and I think I agree with you as well. And obviously your kids went there.
Yeah.
As my dad was a corporal, sergeant, whatever he was at the time, I think then staff sergeant. You've got a kid whose parents don't necessarily come back from a lot of money, but is very well educated. And you're using the British military system to educate a kid, and having those things of you learn about history, you learn about geography, you understand the world far greater.
Yeah.
So you're getting a great education, which obviously, as long as you can then bring the personality in those people, then you're able to engage and have, I mean, obviously I bet for your kids, someone comes around the house, your kid would introduce themselves, give you please and
stand
thank
out
yous.
from, you know, other sort of, some of their friends, you know, that went to a normal, and it's, you know, they packed their suitcases up at, I think they were 11 when they started at that school. And it is a lot to ask from them, but, you know, being in the military, as you all know, you're constantly on the go, you're on the move. Before that, we had an au pair, which, you know, had its pros and cons as well. But the boarding school thing just really worked for us as a family. And, you know, the kids enjoyed it there. They loved it. Obviously, COVID did ruin some aspect of that experience for them. But yeah, it definitely taught them, you know, really good skills for life. It set them up, like you said, Ben. It has set them up. And
yeah, and I think obviously having that time to separate from your parents and getting used to that. I mean, I suffered with homesickness. Of course I did. A lot of kids did, you know, you're crying, you're not, you know, you're missing your parents and all these other bits. But yeah, it's funny because I was like giving my kids shit and I was going, at your age.
Yeah, oh mate.
Yeah, I was.
They always
yeah, it's like when I was when I was 7 years old, 7 years of age, I was away from my parents. I was making my bed. I was doing all these other bits and pieces. You know, and I have to remind them to fucking empty the packed lunch boxes.
Oh mate, absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, creatures, aren't they?
Yeah.
I think when I was like 10, 11 years old, I was taking apart French bangers, making little penny bombs, chucking them at the local buses as they went past, creating absolute chaos. You know, but that was what we did, didn't it?
Yeah.
You know, getting air rifles, sticking sort of like little earbuds down there and shooting your mates when they went past. You'd be a terrorist now if you did that. You get sent down. But
it's
yeah.
funny, I had a chat on a podcast a while ago about that and how you grew up, and like when I was at the school, my escapism when I was at the school, away from, obviously because you're stuck there at boarding schools, I used to go down the woods.
Yeah.
There used to be some woods there, and I used to go, and it was down in Dover, so there'd be lots of flint, so I used to break off the flint and make like little arrowheads or little knives out of it. I used to go and try and find hemp, as you do, and you know, and muck around. But you would play in the woods, and you do these things like your hide and seeks and you kick the can and all these other games. And I think that was what helped me in my career as a soldier, and learning all those things of, you know, your field craft. And I think that's something missing. And it's a point I've brought up many times, and we're seeing it now in our soldiers now. it was really prevalent during Afghanistan, where we went into the fob mentality of being in these fobs. And what we saw then was a massive loss of corporate knowledge from our Northern Ireland days of patrolling and absence of normal, presence of the abnormal. And we saw that back in those days. When we went into FOBs, a lot of those full screws and commanders hadn't done the Northern Ireland tours. They had a FOB mentality where they're going on patrols at the same time every day. A lot of them were taking paths of least resistance. So they were on paths and tracks because of the amount of weight they're being asked to carry. And you see sort of kids of our kind of generation who played in the woods. And we did a little bit better. We did a bit better because we saw the absence of normal presence. Absence of normal presence, the abnormal. We saw these things. We saw what was wrong, and also our fieldcraft of looking of, how to take cover and on all these things. These are all building blocks as kids that we've kind of utilized through our careers as we get older. And then obviously certainly for you guys, from your background, you're working with different units. You're having to engage with different commanders. You're having to engage with people outside of your own units. Same as me for when I was in sort of PF and then 2-2s, you're working with different organizations. So you have to engage with them. You have to talk to them. And I honestly believe that we were good at it because of those fundamental building blocks we had as kids.
The building blocks, I think, of you coming from 70s, 80s was fundamentally are much more diverse than it is now. I think it's just a reflection of society. And I think what we're seeing is this massive capability gap in the military, where we've almost gone over towards like the Americans, where they've got this massive reliance on technology, and when equipment falls over, and then you're like, what do we do? You haven't got that ingenuity to think, okay, let's just try and make this work or do this or that. And I think that's going to be our undoing, ultimately, that we need to go back to some of these really basic skills.
100%.
We need to understand how to repair things, how to compromise and make our own antennas out of something we can just strip down to get comms in. We used to teach like alternative communications, and we'd say to someone, right, you need to get HF in between here and Scotland, and you'd give them like a spoon and a Land Rover and a bit of wire, and they'd be like, what am I doing there? And you'd say, well, look, let's just use a Land Rover bumper as an antenna, and they'd be, oh my God. And then you see people, the cogs starting to turn.
So a lot of this as well. So that was something I was massively involved in before I left, was going back to working in contested environments, going back, and we talked about it before we all sat down, it was never about reinventing the wheel. It was about getting the wheel back out of the garage or the shed or whatever. And what I liked about what we were doing, me and who's now the RSM of 18, what we were looking to do was get into COTS, so commercial off the shelf, building your MacGyver stuff. And not only is that good so you can learn how to make your own HF radios, it's also good because it makes your brain think outside the box.
Yeah.
So what I was trying to do is bring COTS into go back to doing the MacGyver shit, so making surveillance devices, making communication devices out of household objects. Or stuff you could locally buy. And it wasn't so you're actually necessarily using that. It was to basically, when you look at your planning and you're looking at your planning for operations, instead of just using templated planning, what you do is you go, right, well, how the fuck do I solve this problem?
Yep.
And then you start thinking outside the box. I think going back to the Afghanistan piece, where we were continuously campaigning in the same way and units were coming in and replacing the next unit, we did go into this templated soldiering. And that was great certainly for some of the DE class, because they actually had people who were doing exactly what they were told. But what was wrong was that actually we weren't able to adapt. We weren't able to adapt as the enemy had more freedom to adapt because it didn't have the restrictions that we had. So actually encouraging people to think outside the box. I mean, the Brits, since the First World War, we always lived on the black economy. We begged, borrowed, steal, we made it work. And because we did that, because we weren't templated, we were so much better soldiers. Yeah. What we then relied on was the American might and the technologies. And we used that to our advantage. So where we lacked in infrastructure capability in those ones, we made up in skills, basic skills. And it is interesting that actually what I saw in my time, or certainly towards the end, is the Americans were really, really good at they were crap at doing the basics right, as in the actual soldiering level right, but obviously larger scale intelligence gathering, phenomenal. Maintaining that intelligence, so actually keeping those databases, the analytical process, brilliant. Brits, greatest, the basic SEALs, crap at the other big stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it was almost like we kept our skills, because we're on the black economy, we kept our skills of being able to work in the jungle in these different environments. But as soon as we left an operational theatre, we just fucking ditched all the intelligence. Where the Americans kept it, but they didn't do.
Yeah, no one like wrote it up and like had that book on the shelf that they could take off and dust down. How do we used to do this? What are our TTPs?
And that's down to our 2-year operational cycle. That's down to doing 2 years and then moving on to the next job.
On the wheel, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. And you see that in our intelligence services through our. I used to be Pathfinders, as I said, and I came up with an option. I won't say the name of the exercises or go into detail with names and places, etc. But what I wanted to do was go back to basics. And what I understood is the way that the operational landscape is going is we're going back to contested environments, right? We're going back to our peers are being absolutely awesome at their EW, at GPS denied environments, all these sort of things. They're better at gleaming the J2. And the reason why, as we talked about earlier, is because for 20 odd years, we've shown our hand. We've shown our hand for 20 odd years. We've shown everyone what we're doing. And our enemies are just going, keep it coming. We're going to see how you do. And we're going to build our armies so we know how to combat.
About our entire playbook.
One fucking trick. Yeah. Your one trick, which is fly jets over and bomb stuff, right?
Yeah.
And we know full well that the person who's going to be doing that is going to be on TACSAC, and it's going to be at number 11. We missed all that. I mean, the signals, you'll say, even in your training courses, you're not going back to HF like you used to. You don't talk about shielding and all these other good things.
Tempest is probably a dirty word these days.
Yeah, 100%. So, and also things like passporting your kit and equipment to make sure you know where your kit and equipment's been used in what theatres. Yeah. So what you're not doing is giving away your signatures of your kit and equipment in those theatres. So why I had this concept of why don't we work as an SF organisation? Why don't we work with the Green Army and see them as a peer force? You jump on the back of their exercises where they are using kit and equipment that our peers would use, and we could go and test our kit and equipment, and also we could see what we actually look like.
Yes.
So the idea is when they're using their optics, when they're using their EW capabilities, we can see what we look like and see if we can be seen. What's that good for? First of all, it's good to test our own abilities and get us going back to basics. It allows us to create exercises where we could then get new troopers, potential TLs, so troop leaders, and new Ruperts and officers, and get them to test them, everything from the estimate process through to find, fix, and finish, using assets that have already bidded on by Green Army units. And then ultimately, you're then giving back your Red Force data back to the Green Army unit and say, right, and guys, these are your weak spots. This is where you're being exposed. So we did this, and we went with the 16 brigades annual big brigade exercise they did. And I took a team with me. I took some SRR guys, obviously 6 guys, who's my right-hand man. I took 2 senior blokes from the regiment to make sure that I wasn't marking my own homework and I wasn't going off template. And then we had a couple of real techie guys as well, along with us. Did I say SRR? And I had some SRR.
Yeah, that's right.
And the idea is I wanted to go back to being dirty little horrible bastards, which is what SF is meant to be.
Exactly
right?
that.
Yeah. The only thing we had was HF, so we stuck a rebro, a known distance to make sure you can get the bounce. Mm-hmm. And so we stuck a guy over in that country, and then obviously their job was to then relay. And then we asked some larger government organisations to see if they can pick up the chatter and the noise as we were doing it. Mm. I went back to Skeds. So the only communication we did was on Skeds, and we'd always make sure that if we did a Sked, we'd move off from the last known location. And we went back to exactly this, I'm not giving away TTPs here. This is old school Green Army soldiering from back in the day. It's
like Malayan tree sort of operation.
100%. And going back we've lost that because of the arrogance of the British military and the coalition military. So we went there and I said, I knew the brigade commander. So the only people who knew we were on the exercise was the brigade commander, who was ex-regiment CO, and the OC for PF at the time, who's a friend of mine who was also an officer at 22, and said, look, the only thing I need off you guys is I just need to know the enemy's location, your enemy's location, who would be for this fact, they would be our partner force, right? So and then all I did is I just did a map study. I did a map study and I said, right, where would I be if I was trying to get eyes on that location? I want to be at the limit of optics and weapons.
Mm-hmm.
That's basics, right? Okay, I'll be there. Where would I be if I wanted to get pretty little pictures to send back to my HQ so officers had something to report on?
Yeah.
And I wanted to be in distance for them, and I wanted to be sending all this data with all your little flashy drop downs and all this other stuff. And I found the biggest bush or wooded area that was closest there, and I said I'd be there. So we went down to something like Maplands. We bought 800 quid's worth of kit to essentially build ourselves just a small receiving device to kind of pick up Wi-Fi and phone signals. Something we did ourselves. We built it. Sure enough, we went past and I picked up a bit of a signal. I was like, there's definitely something in this woodblock, which is weird because obviously it's at night. There shouldn't be anyone in there anyway. And then I was like, right, what we'll do is we'll lower the power in the antenna so we're not reaching as far, and we direct it a bit more directional. And I found 19 out of what was known as the 21 handsets that I knew would have been on the ground at the time.
Wow.
And it's all because what they were trying to do is be more modern, and they were trying to make sure that they had data, and they were sending constant data reports back to their heads. It's not the lad's fault, right? This is because we're overly risk adverse, and our officers need something to be talking and working on. They need pretty little pictures in their upbringings.
It's dangerous because
Very dangerous.
we've now entered, in the last couple of years, this 3-dimensional warfare where exactly what you've built can be mass produced by China, all these other people, small form factor, put on a cheap little drone, flown around the area. It's just sort of sniffing out any sort of EW signature, reporting it back, and then next thing you know, you've got a whole load of sort of artillery.
Mate, we knew this back in 2014 in Ukraine, where a whole artillery unit were taken out because they were using a messaging service.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And it was done. So we knew that in 2014. We know this is being used, yet we're not learning anything. We're not, our commanders. And this is where what's happening is the changing culture where we're giving too much tactical control to our DEs instead of them being in a deconfliction space. And actually, and this overly risk adverse culture that's being created. And what's happening is essentially they just don't get it, but they're going to it's going to be like General Melchid brushing or that thing of Field Marshal Haig where he's just wiping numbers off the battlefield with a dustpan and brush, right? That's what it's going to be. Yeah. I went back to 16 to brief them, and I wanted the EW organization, again, I won't say names, and I wanted all the SIGs platoon from the battalions to be there. There was other things that was going wrong as well. I'll just go back quickly. Within 48 hours, just using a bit of simple knowledge of basic soldiering, of map appreciation studies, kind of predicting what would happen, using a bit of common knowledge and less than £1,000 worth of kit. Within 48 hours, I had every single frequency that was being used by the brigade and all the locations of their commanders.
Massively compromised.
Yeah, within 48 hours. I know they had 2, maybe even 4 EW teams out on the ground. Yeah. Not a sniff of what we were doing. And the reason why is they wouldn't have done, because we were using, we were on skids. And that's exactly it. They didn't know we were there, so they weren't necessarily looking for us. So I also observed guys who are wearing MTP, and I won't say which battalion. This is not about embarrassing them, by the way. This is about, I'm trying to actually get a point across about culture. They were wearing MTP and they were being led across, I was watching them, they're being led across a ploughed field when actually on the right and the left were wood blocks and grass where MTP fits in. They were going across in a plough field where they're leaving foot sign, which can be seen from the air very clearly. And they're also going across a brown field while wearing MTP. You're like, this is the absolute basics that you are not getting when you're in a 360 battlefield where people are using, there would be third-party awareness, local sympathizers for proxies or whatever could use just a fucking Bakshi drone and they would have seen this. And guys who are soldiering are being led by their recce platoons across fucking ploughed fields. Recce platoons, or their commanders, whoever the lead point.
What was the feedback? So when you said to them about this?
Nothing. So this was what really annoying, was quite frustrating. When I went back up there, briefed obviously here for my old organisation, the poor buggers were being forced into trialling this kit and they were being forced into delivering this sort of information. So it wasn't really good for them. But obviously what we were trying to say is, look, guys, this is a bit of a shitter on you, but let's use this to stress the point. When I asked for the signals platoons and the commanders from the organisations to come in, we got chinned off. The only people that turned up were the EW Luke guys and obviously the signals unit within 16 Brigade, our good friends. They turned up. And the commanders from the brigade, a couple of them turned up and they just weren't interested. The reason why they weren't interested is because actually all they wanted to do is prove success on the exercise.
Exactly. Well, they've engineered it that way from the start so they can go and get a gold star when they get their next report or what have you. But we got the stress test and everything. It doesn't matter if it's in business, in the military, you need to stress test your assets, find out where the weaknesses are, learn the lessons, improve. It's a constant game of snakes and ladders in life generally.
But those lessons aren't being learned. Again,
they're not coming to listen to the feedback. So how can you teach them something when they're not willing to listen?
And if they're not, if we're not going to learn from our mistakes, and if we've got the 2-year cycle, then actually no one gives a shit because they've done enough. And then they're out the door. Again, I think we need to look at these cultures. I mean, obviously, guys, I've moved on and everything else, but I think all of these things, it's interesting that the way that we haven't learned over the years, we haven't learned from all of our predecessors, our failures. No, the whole point of Sandhurst is they study history. They study everything from, the Crimean War and everything else. But how come we went into fob soldiering?
Oh, exactly. But then you just only got to look at the Russians, didn't they? It didn't take them long to go from all this technological advantage they had in Ukraine to within 6 months they're just doing meat waves.
Might be on the side. Yeah, they used that period of time, those 20 odd years, to learn exactly what we were failing, what we were our failings. There is no excuse. There is no excuse to make those mistakes. The only thing you can see is complacency and arrogance.
See that a lot.
Technology's done, I think.
Yeah. Also, was it there? Was it? Okay, I'll have a look. All right, I'll give you a shout. All right, mate. I don't know what the answer is, but I know full well is that when we look at technology, and I've seen it in the procurement departments, I've seen it in organisations and things. Bringing technology and capability into units, great for our commanders to have something written about and what they've been up to. We see it in defence procurement when we spend millions on a capability that's taken so long to come in that it's already out of service.
Whereas COTS would sort that out tomorrow.
Exactly. Because obviously the system's so slow. And I just think we need to really look at the whole of the civil service and the way we do things. I mean, talking about these mistakes and how we're not learning. If you look, there are some good and bad things. We invested into this new Ranger battalion, these Ranger units that have gone on, because the idea is we think we can make money as a country by doing support and influence by actually training of partner countries and everything else. We think we can train them and build up their militaries, and we'll obviously through that we'll get, I don't know, defense contracts and have influence. But then you've got people like China who will just go into that country and go, I'll tell you what, I'll just build all your roads. And then I'll give you a backhander of 2 million quid or 50 million quid. And then I want all that woodland and I want drilling rights to that area.
That's what they did.
And it works. That model is taking over Africa, all the infrastructure they're putting in. And before you know it, countries are indebted. They can't afford to pay that back. And so China is in there. And
so what are we doing? And we're still going, but we can train your, you mean if you train your army means I have to work and now I have to command that army? Well, yes, you will have to. But this guy's just offered me 50 million quid and a house in Kensington.
Yeah.
I was like, okay.
That is the mindset you're up against.
Yeah, 100%.
But Keir Starmer's going to sort that because he's just giving them £13 billion for some wind farms in Africa or what have you. I mean, it's just mental.
I mean, the flip side is, granted, that through the Ranger Battalion, yes, you're keeping these Green Army infantry units into employment. Yes, you're redistributing wealth and everything else. But I fear, as a country, we're investing more into technologies and companies where there's a smaller capita of people who are actually profiting from the money through defence than we are investing into people. We're actually, our army's essentially, or our MOD's essentially a militia now, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it is for the size of it. But I think the reason they've done that in one respect is because the technology has got to fill the gap that's left with the lack of manpower. So,
which is easier to fire soldiers or make them redundant, because obviously it's a great way of saving money because you're actually getting rid of civil servants when actually there's so much fucking waste out there anyway.
No.
Do you see that thing? What's his name? What's your man who owns Twitter now? What's his name? Elon Musk. Sorry, forgive me. Elon Musk has just said that if Trump gets into power, he's going to look to axe about 90% of the agencies that have been created in America, because he thinks it's a complete waste. Argentina's done the same thing. And because what we've done is they've made agencies for agencies, and there's overlapping. And it's the same as our civil service. We've got so many people in the civil service who are actually not being held accountable for their incompetence, who are actually never have to be held accountable. So they're making decisions on behalf of people who are actually contributing into society. It has no effect on them because they guarantee to be paid, where everyone else is having to pay through the nose and for their ideology. And that's what we're seeing, is we're seeing civil service organizations who are being driven by their own ideologies and their own political, fucking mantra than they are actually for the better good of the country. And it's just,
who knows where it's going to go?
Yeah, and it's the whole thing. The whole thing's connected, because actually we see the same mentality in our culture, in our officers, who eventually become very political in their careers, depending on how long they want to stay in. And we're the same thing with the FCO, is this reluctance to actually take any risk.
Yes,
which is obviously affecting the lower end. And then no one's holding, our MPs aren't holding our civil servants accountable for fear of being called bullied, being bullied. And the whole thing is just a fucking mess.
Yeah. Well, I think society is going to get to a pinch point. We all saw it a few months ago, but that obviously got quelled pretty quickly.
Yeah.
I think at some point we'll probably take more of the French mentality and stand up for ourselves. But I don't know. I don't know where it's all going. But
I think we've got to realise very quickly that actually the MPs that we put into power, they're not actually in power. There's the old TV series from back in the 70s called Yes Minister. It's a parody, obviously. It is exactly what's going on. Our civil service runs the government. Our civil service runs the MOD. If you try and get anything done within the civil service for things like infrastructure, capability, all these other things, DNS, for example, the process it takes you to get anything done is outrageous, but no one's been held accountable for failure. The infrastructure, buildings and land, which is all being sold off to civil contractors, to get them held accountable for them actually to do something with those buildings. You can't, because they put a military figurehead in these departments, but has no power. Because actually the civil contractor the civil servant does. The civil servant will leave and go and work for a civil contractor because he gets paid more, but it's still the same incompetence in the job, and the officer that's working in these organisations isn't going to rock the boat because the cunt's already got a house in Andover with kids in public school.
Yeah.
So he wants a job working for one of these organisations as well.
Yeah.
It's a mess.
Yeah, it is. But is it going to get better in the short term?
Well, it probably not. But what it needs is if there are people in politics who've actually got some balls, you say, no, right, you will be held. And, you know, that's what needs to happen.
It is.
Because everyone is suffering. Everyone is suffering, you know.
Well, I think it's going to be more at the end of this month, but that budget will tell us all where we're going for the next 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, and who's going to pay for it? It's going to be businessmen, small businesses.
Yeah.
Small businesses, I heard yesterday, make up 60% of the UK workforce. As a small business owner, I obviously pay people's pensions. I pay the tax. I pay, obviously, my VAT. I'm VAT registered. I pay 25% back to the government on any profit that's made.
Yep.
Right. So not only have I paid VAT, which is 20% on all products I sell, after I've sold that product, at the end of the year, the taxman will go, I want 25% of any profit that you've actually made. Mm-hmm. And then the council will come in and say, well, I also want business tax on the business that you've actually employed lots of people that you're paying their tax for.
Yeah.
And now they're asking me to pay my staff even more, but they're putting up the prices of the products and everything else.
Yeah.
And this is all made up by a civil servant who's probably working from home, who isn't being held accountable for their incompetence.
And hasn't got to worry about his job. He hasn't got to worry about his next paycheck's coming from. He's in this gold-plated seat.
100%.
And then you've got the people like ourselves, all small business owners. You're out there having to do the daily grind, make sure your staff paid, often sacrificing your own sort of welfare, your life, family time, getting to go on holiday.
You can't even get rid of dross now. So all of this culture that we're seeing, all of this culture of lack of being held accountable, being in fear of being sued or being whatever, you know, dragged over the coals.
Bloody minefield, isn't it?
Yeah, all of this is so actually no one's actually standing up for the people that are actually putting their hands in the pocket to keep the country alive. Yeah. So you've got another culture that's now developing where actually there's a massive sense of entitlement because they're getting away with it. Mm. They then been told, because they're so fucking weak within the government and that the civil servants are making these rules up, that we can't actually fire incompetence. The person someone turns up to work now can literally go on the sick the next day.
And self-certify, isn't it? Yeah.
Self-certify and go on the sick for 6 months and you'll have to pay them. Mm-hmm. And then the government will top up the rest of their wage and you can't even get rid of them for incompetence. It's mental. But who suffers? But the thing is, again, those civil servants who run, you know, within HMRC and within employment law and everything else, they don't give a shit if you go under because you can't pay your bills. They will absolutely squeeze you for everything because there are more of you.
That's right. There's always someone coming up behind you.
There's someone coming up. So they'll squeeze you dry. You'll fall over. All your staff will have to go on to benefits, but they're happy for your staff to go on to benefits because they're not getting that penny out of you.
Yeah.
It's fucking criminal.
Broken.
Yeah. So I actually look at now and I look at barbers, hairdressers, these Turkish barbers are popping up all over the place. These burger vans and everything else who are paying everything by cash. Fucking good on them. Yeah. Fucking good on it. Before I used to hate it. Yeah. I used to be annoyed by it because I felt like they're not paying into the system. But the system isn't supporting the people who are propping it up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think there is something to be said in there about getting one over on the system every now and then. Those little wins are probably what keep us going. Yeah. Winston Churchill said it's every man's duty to pay as little tax as possible.
Yeah.
And that's absolutely right. You know, pay what's due, but not a penny more. And
100%. But when you're actually paying, and we obviously, you know, we can go down the classic topical things at the moment. But sadly in society, it does pay to be a shit. It pays. Yeah. There are people on benefits that are on more money than me or any of my staff.
Mm-hmm. And they're not contributing to it. It's like that.
They've got fast broadband at home, they've got a 60-inch telly, they're smoking 40 B&H a day. Yep. So, you know, they're sustaining this lifestyle on free money.
So one of the businesses that we run is we have shops on some army camps, on some transit camps. And they're like, you know, little like tuck shop type things. And what we like to do is we like to employ pads wives. Mm-hmm. And what we've identified, this isn't the case in all, by the way, you know, there's some great pads wives out there, and everyone's circumstance is different. But what we're seeing is a lot of young people these days who've come from a background where their parents have been on welfare and probably their grandparents were all on welfare. So we're seeing third generation welfare in some cases. One of the concepts I came up with was to create employment opportunities for pads wives. A lot of the garrisons are in quite austere locations. Yeah. There's not a lot of work. The wives are probably at an age where they probably got young kids or are going to have kids.
School run and all that
100%,
stuff.
Yeah, the husbands are going to be away. So I thought, what if I could create like a flexible working environment where some of the pads wives can come in and work, they can earn some more money, and it will create like a working culture within them. Obviously, some cases, some people don't need that. And I've got staff who are just like that. I've got staff who are great and they work really hard. They take the money, they go home, and they got a great household that's going on. There are some that are out there that would really benefit from what we're achieving because it would give them structure in their lives. It would give them money. And it means that actually they can concentrate on bringing money into the household, which makes a more secure household, so their partner can go to work and work very hard within the military without the stresses and strains of financial issues or even just problematic partners who've got too much time on their hands, giving too much shit that's going on, and actually can just get on. So I believe it would mean that we would lower the J1, so your personal problems at home, and it would bring more money into the household. And also when that man or woman, that serving partner leaves the military, there's already a foot on the ground who's already with that working culture. I fear where we are culturally at the moment, where you got young lads and lasses are marrying the first thing that pays them a bit of interest because they got a couple of quid from that shithole that they came from, brings them into the garrison town. There's a reluctance to work because why should I? Because I know I'm going to get more money on benefits and family allowances and everything else. And my husband or my wife is already bringing money in, so why the fuck should I work?
Yeah.
And then obviously that creates fucking issues at home, and that means when that partner's leaving. And it's a fucking horrendous culture. It's absolutely horrendous. So actually, I think there are little things we can do, but going back to the point was, unless they make a decisive decision to actually say, yes, I want to get into employment, where is the incentive for them to do it when you've got a government that's giving them more money to do fuck all than it is for them to actually get off their arse and go and work and contribute back into society?
Yeah. Right. Well, I think, if you're a little bit of a conspiracy theorist, you'd be saying, well, the government are doing that because they know that's going to buy them votes to stay in.
Yeah, but I agree with that. But actually, I go deeper into that conspiracy theory in a second. But I think actually what you're seeing is the government are so fucking stupid that they believe that bringing in migrants well, it did work ages. It did work during the Windrush, actually, because Labour fooled a lot of the Windrush into thinking, go down to the Labour office so you can sign on to get work, when actually they went down there to sign on as a voting member of Labour Party, right? Do they think that these migrants and do they think that these welfare dwellers are going to actually vote Labour? No, because most of them don't want to be held accountable or even noticed. So why the fuck
under the radar?
So actually, they're actually just creating an issue for people who aren't even their voting demographic. I would actually say, speak to Gaz Walsh or Hugh Keir or any of those others. I would actually say that maybe that there's a theory that to create socialism throughout the Western world is to encourage that everyone would be dependent on the state. But it's not a state, right? In our eyes, it's a state. It's a state because it gives you the confidence that there's an overarching body that's got your best interests at heart. But it's not. It's a globalist, capitalist grouping, but not capitalism in the great way that everyone has the opportunity to be a capitalist, but as in a single, a few globalists who have the monopoly that your house is rented, your car is rented. You don't actually work, you get money off the state. The state now controls how far you go, where that money that you've been given can be spent, where it can be recycled back into their pockets. So really, it's the fucking Matrix. You become a fucking battery for this
Yes,
social.
becoming robots, aren't we?
Yeah. And my honest theory is look at the grouping of your Soroses, your Blairs, and your Clintons. Right? They're all part of this. The Clintons and the Blairs are all part of the same university pact. Yeah. And then your Soroses, who are the money guys and the backers behind it, and your Black Rocks, etc. They're all pushing, and they're very clever, because what they've done is they're pushing left-wing politics, but really it's Marxist politics. It's left-wing politics in being disguised as liberalism, right? Everyone should be equal and everyone should be nice to each other and everyone. But what they're doing is they're using this liberal mindset, because they know you're fucking stupid, to hate a system that they've actually created. I mean, look, the same thing's being happened with terrorism. We're seeing it now in Palestine with Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthi. What they've done is they've used the victimhood of the Palestinians and the Lebanese, who are getting smashed because they're being used as human shields. And the liberals are jumping on the back of this because they like the idea of hating an aggressor, a single aggressor, which they see as Israel. But they're not realizing that the wolf in sheep's clothing is actually having you do the fucking dirty work for them. You saw it at Glastonbury this year. People were waving Palestinian flags.
Right. Yeah.
Glastonbury, but only a few months before at another festival, young girls and men had been murdered and raped. Festival, where is but they don't see that, because liberal ideology only sees what they want to see. And ironically, it is actually quite fascist, because they only have one point of view and everything else. But what they're actually doing is these larger organizations know how to use the left wing and liberal
social media. I mean, my daughter came down back in, I don't know, whenever it was, April or something in this year. She's like, I can't believe what Israel are doing to Hamas and the people out in Gaza. I was like, all right, why? What do you mean? She goes, well, there's bombing them and they're so innocent and Israel's so bad. I said, why don't you explain to me, what has actually happened? What's the story behind it? Behind October 7th? Go back before that, Israel, Hamas, all the history. Well, I haven't got time to do that. I saw it on TikTok and I'm like, well, that's where you're going wrong. You're getting your information of basically a terrorist organization that is very good at social media and getting their narrative out there better than the other people. But just use your brain cells. People don't just go and bomb people for any reason. They've been pushed to that point.
It's part of Hamas have openly said that they want, what do they say? There will be one on the chests and the bodies of the people. Where's something like that. And basically what they're saying is they want the people, the population, to be human shields, where they'll put their missile silos and put their launch pads and everything under the houses of these people. And the people, I don't want to go too deep into this, but essentially, Palestine should be fucking Dubai. The amount of billions and billions that have been thrown.
It could have been the next Hong Kong if they'd have sorted it out.
Easy. But they're not interested in that. No. But again, going back to liberal ideology, is the fact they only see what they want to see. They love the idea of the victimhood. There's always got to be a victim. There's always got to be an authoritarian figure. And that has to be something that's already established. Now, as we grow up, I would say I was liberal. I am liberal. I always have been. I'm saying you guys were. I grew up, born in the 70s, 80s, 90s. It was being black, being gay, being anything was never a big thing. It was never a thing. Yeah. Now I'm starting to, I see my black friends and I'm now consciously acknowledging that person's black. I see a gay friend and I'm actually consciously knowing that person's gay. It was never a thing before.
Yeah.
All these sort of, going back to social media, yes, all this is being pushed on you to all push agenda and gender and agenda politics is being pushed through this. And it's all part of this design to use left-wing liberal politics, ideology to drive a Marxist movement. The idea is to you to become, we saw it, look how everyone did exactly they were told during COVID. Look at what's happening at the moment. Anyone who's against the fucking rape and sexual abuse of those young girls up in Rotherham.
Yeah, then you're just classed as far right. That's it. They put a label on you. They can shut you down.
Yeah, 100%.
Tomorrow. But
Trump, for example, go back to him. The guy employed more blacks than anyone else. I think he was the first person to hire a female architect to build his skyscraper. He was best friends with, you name. I mean, didn't he? Jesse, what's his name? Jesse Owens. Jesse.
Oh, what the preacher guy?
Yeah. He pushed him into campaigned, paid for his campaign into politics. But then, as soon as he went in there up against a left-wing opposition, the Democrats, which is ironically the ones who are behind slavery, and Clinton and Biden both went to the funeral of the last KK leader, is now being classed as a fucking racist.
Yeah.
Because it's easy. Racist. Fucking homophobe.
Well, it shuts you down, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That's it, straight away. You know, you could turn around like Israel. If they don't like something, they'll just say that you'll get your anti-Semite or what have you. And
yeah.
it's a one-word solution just to sort of get people to stop talking. But sort of rolling back a bit, because we sort of went down, that was quite a cool rabbit hole, actually. I think we put the world to rights there. You obviously left school. So that's just
going that far back.
Yeah, see, that's 1975. So you're a 77.
I was born in 77.
It's 77, were you? Fucking hell, you two have got so much better hair than me. You know, we talk about Turkish barbers. They're getting no money out of me this week. But so you left school. You're like basically a kid of the 80s. So action films and like.
No, I was more, really young kid in the 80s. Yeah. I was a teenager in the 90s. Yeah.
And then, so we're all sort of similar age. Well, it's actually Martin's birthday today, so he's 50. You wouldn't believe it. Great team. But you joined the military. So what regiment did you start in? How did that sort of journey work?
So I went to military school, GQ's military. My best mate, a lad called Ian Clark, who, when we were at school, he was going to join the Paras, I was going to join the Royal Marines. That was our thing. And then when we both left school at 16, he went to join the Paras and he got accepted into depot. I went to the careers office to go and join the Royal Marines, and they actually told me I was too small to be a Royal Marine. I wouldn't get in. Obviously, a bit deflated. I then went to college. I liked art, so I went to go and do art. But obviously at that time, other things get your interest in your teenage years. And so I fucked around a bit, did different jobs in different places and everything else. And then when I was 19, I went to reapply, and I ended up going to the careers office in Grimsby. And the guy who was running the careers office in Grimsby was a Royal Anglian, I think, and he was trying to get us into there. I wasn't interested. So now I'm going to join the Paras. Yeah. And I then went then. So I actually joined a little bit later. But what I honestly believe is that I'm glad I joined a bit later because it made me a bit more worldly. Yeah. You know, I got to be a teenager. I got to go and, go to festivals. Hey, Ed. But Ed, I actually went to school with it. And I got to go and do the festivals. I got to, get drunk, smoke weed, do all those bits.
Sex, drugs and rock and roll.
Yeah, 100%, yeah.
Got to live a bit, Most people leave at 16, 17, and that's them.
Yeah, no, I honestly believe that made, as part of what we talked about earlier, it made it easier for me to find common ground with a lot more people.
Yeah.
Because now I'm understanding, I'm seeing people from different backgrounds. I'm sort of seeing this. So actually you can find a lot more sort of common ground. And also, going, I suppose, paper point you were about to bring up then is that formed the basis of we were very lucky in the 90s because we had all the culture of the fashion, the music. Yeah. And that sort of is the basis of why I like my comics and I like my rock music and I like all these things that made us back in those days. But, if you look at what music did, 80s and the 90s, we saw these sort of cultures where we mixed with different influences from different ethnic and sort of cultural differences from reggae, blues, indie, rock, all these different things came together. That's why being black, gay, straight, all of those things were never a thing back there. What I think we're seeing now is actually a lack of identity and a lack of originality. Yeah. And what they're trying to do is bring up this bullshit. Mm-hmm. That's why everyone thinks it's cool to be a trans, bi, whatever, and there has to be
furries are the latest ones that our kids have got at school.
Everyone needs a label, and we're seeing it within mental health. We're seeing it with people now trying to give themselves labels with 3-letter acronyms and everything else come off the back of it, because people have to have some sort of identity. Where years ago we found our identity by our own tribes, and our own tribes were based around music and, skateboarding and surfing and rugby and all these other things.
Common interests.
Yeah, 100%. Where now everyone's so busy to trying to make themselves more interesting than they actually are.
Yeah.
Or actually we were interesting because we were with. So
Big thing at the moment is that schools sending out emails for testing children for ADHD, but I think what they're forgetting is like if you put that as you call it, a label on someone so early, it can potentially affect them later on in life, with future employment or anything like that, and it might just be a case of like it's a boy, he needs to go and climb some trees and throw some acorns around.
Yeah.
So
think of all the energy that's pent up of just being on your phone.
On your phone, exactly.
And also the thing going back a bit is, we talked about it when talked about the school, the uniform and conforming, that made everyone equal. Yeah. And there are a number of nuances within that, and you see these, but they were coming out, and you're able to do that in sport. You're able to do that to be creative with your music or different lessons, and they were brought out. But the core element of you was to conform in a school, and as long as you conform there, everyone is equal. From a financial background of where you are in society, lower class, middle class, working class, whatever, kept you as an even keel. But then you're able to be creative and have those outlets. So I'm really glad I had all that, and I think it really helped me when I eventually joined the Red. As I said, it was back in the 90s. Nothing was happening. It was very quiet.
Yeah.
I transferred to the REME. I did 2 years there, where I met some of the best guys I've ever known in life. I'm still really close, but then I was in my early 20s, so it was a really influential part of your life where you're going on the lash and you're using the money you've got, your weekend millionaires, and you're fucking around the country to rent houses. Yeah.
Been there. So where were you posted then? Where was like your first REME approach?
Aldershot, then Colchester.
Yep.
And then here.
So that was Aldershot with 5 Airborne.
Yeah, with Firearm Brigade, and then it went into 16 Brigade.
Yeah.
Just as I was leaving, just as I left, and then I came back into 16.
So you joined Power Reg. How old were you when you sort of did P Company and
19.
jumped? 19.
Yeah, 19. Yeah.
So good age to do it. Injury free.
I think so. But I was actually going to speak to some guys I know who run an online sort of training company, and they help people train for things like P Company.
Yeah.
Pathfinder, Carter and selection stuff, and just personal training. And I think there's something that is key, and I think all our body types are different.
Yes.
So for me, I was at the time very fit because I played a lot of rugby.
Mm-hmm.
So aerobically, I was very, very fit. I was fast. I could swim well. I could do all these things, but all short distance explosive stuff. And I did suffer on P Company, although I got through it all right. I did suffer because I didn't have that endurance in me. Yeah. That comes with a bit of age and maturity, and your body's getting used to it. So actually, when I went on selection the first time in 2000, I did actually struggle with my endurance because I just didn't have that in my body.
Yes, yeah.
Eventually, I went on the Pathfinder card, and I changed my training. I changed it to spending more time on my legs, longer sort of swims, very slow, long stuff, and that built that endurance. And actually, I think the reason why I was able to pass selection later on is because my body was now at a perfect time to do that.
Yeah.
Where some people are just lungs and they get through it.
Mate, very important. It's interesting what you just sort of said there, because we were talking about this with Tom Blakey the other day, and like, I think Tom did like P Company probably early 90s when it was the older one. I think probably basically did Brecon and Aldershot and all of that. I did 99, you did 06, but regardless, it's always been a fresh, the tests and the standards are still, right up. They've never dropped that. But I think it's their approach now. I think you're saying it's getting guys through the course rather than who's left at the end. Much more sort of dealing with like stretching, nutrition, and what your body type is, and not getting injured. Because otherwise, you just got blokes that pass the course, then they're knackered. They're in rehab for the next 6 months. And I think that's quite interesting what you said there, that your body's got to be ready mentally. You could be there, but if you thrashed your body and you're not ready for any of these courses, you're not getting through. You can't grizz it.
I know. There's a balance, isn't there? So I mean, we've all seen it where we've got guys who've got through certain courses because they were fit enough to get in.
Yeah.
But they're not necessarily the best soldiers, right? But they were just fit enough to get in. We've seen other cases where we've seen amazing soldiers. They just had some bad luck.
That's right.
Not through being unfit, but actually, picking up injuries and everything else. So I think there's definitely something about investing. But at the same time, the balance is, which I think needs to be looked at, is there is something about P Company and Selection Pathfinder Carter where they're after someone who can pull it out of the bag when the shit hits the fan.
Yeah. Agreed.
So, we see it in the trees where we do the beach runs, and we see it in the trees where people then spanking in the trees. And you're like, man, it's a real shame because that guy would have been an awesome soldier.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if he's going to spank in the trees now, what happens if I get deployed to the trees tomorrow?
That's right.
We need someone whose body type is this. So you are whittling the pool down. And that's why very few people pass selection, because ultimately it's fucking hard because you're after people who can do certain things.
That's right.
Whose bodies can adjust to environments, can take a pounding, and we find a lot of times that's why there's much more of an investment now, and we see it in the military, certainly for people our age or people who are later in their service, because now we're getting more out of these people. We're seeing that actually you can spend a lot of time here now on fucking desk jobs and doing all this other shit. The next day you might have to grab your bag and go on a job. Well, you tried doing that 30, 40 years ago, you'd fucking kill most people. Yeah. Now, you're being expected to be able to do the same job as a 20-year-old in your 40s.
Yeah, but I think functional fitness there, I think a lot of people got into CrossFit in their last sort of 10 years, and good or bad, doesn't really matter. It's the fact that, teaching about what your body can do and how, how to properly lift, how to properly train, which we never did that back in the 90s. You just you ran around like the football pitch a couple of times, flick your heels, and that was it. Right, come on, guys, we're doing the 20 miler. You know what I mean? Yeah. And you were fucked.
I know, yeah.
But
and I don't remember ever stretching off. I remember my stretch off was
do it in the shower.
Yeah, or I'd go to the nappy, get a roller dog and
you did another roller dog. They were great.
And a pint of milk. That was my fucking stretch off.
It absolutely was, wasn't it?
You know what I mean? So,
that was great. But you touched on then, so you first attempted 2-2 selection in 2000
or 2001 when foot and mouth was.
Foot and mouth one. That was a difficult one.
Yeah, out in the States.
Did you go out in the States for that?
Yeah. And I should have been all right. I just made some silly schoolboy errors.
But the big thorn bushes out there and all the kids getting absolutely ragged, like the humidity.
Bears, fucking snakes, fucking swarms of
everything
bees.
just wants to kill you.
Yeah, everything's gopping, yeah. And then that was when, and then you're lucky you don't meet some random hillbilly.
Yeah.
So we were going out in green kit, but with like fluorescent orange rifles. We knew that it was a fake rifle.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to take you on in case they thought you were coming after their Second Amendment or something, Yeah, it was cheeky. Because it was so hot, we'd have to start really early on.
Yeah.
We'd have to start really early on, then you'd finish. But then because they had lots of time in your hands, we'd then do a few stocking fillers.
Yeah, which is good. Yeah. Idle hands. Let's go and thrash the guys.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it was in a world of hurt. And also the thing is, we used American mapping system. So we were using American mapping system with our own compasses and having to use a 40 mil Roma.
Okay.
To make up the difference. So not only are you doing map reading, you then had to convert the map into what you're seeing, into your compass, into mils. And then the maps were something like 40 years old. So because it's obviously all timber out there, a lot of stuff, the timber doesn't last very long. So you're trying to nav off buildings and locations that no longer exist
anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you got that added layer. I mean, when you're Brecon, they're trying to do mag to grid, the head scratching. Then you've got the additional sort of trying to work on the American mapping system, and then all the features on the ground aren't there. Yeah, pretty nails. What was the pass rate like?
I wouldn't say where it was, because I wouldn't say where I was, because obviously that's quite sensitive, but it was like being in the jungle, but you're doing the hill phase of the jungle.
Yeah,
it was.
I remember the guys coming back sort of gave a lot of that feedback. So then, obviously, you came off that course. Then went back?
I came off that course. I was actually REME at the time, so I came off the course, went back, and then transferred.
Yes,
and then once I transferred, I did try going back on selection again between one of the Iraq tours.
Yeah,
wasn't successful. I didn't really get very far in it. I think I just for me, I've always had change in my life. I think it comes back to being a pad sprat and moving around and doing stuff. And I think for me, I just had to get out of that Green Army thing that you know, going back to that templated, right, you're working and then you're stagging on. You know, I needed something. I've always been someone who's wanted a seat at the table. I've always wanted to be able to have some form of input. And if you stay in the green role, you're only going to get the input once you get quite high up, or you're already an officer where you've got that. I think what I wanted is I want to be at a seat now because I've got some good ideas and I think I can contribute, you know, and I think that's what, you know, I speak a lot about it when we're here. And as I think for most of us, I think definitely for men anyway, we need worth. We need to feel like we're contributing daily to something. We also need to feel like we're creating something for many of us. Yeah. You know, maybe that's running your own company. Maybe that's doing something in your spare time. Certainly in the military, I wanted to be creative and I want to better do something and feel like I'm actually contributing to the larger picture. And I think certainly within SF, I also wanted to know what's really going on. Yeah. I wanted to be privy to, you know, the why, which, you know, careful what you wish for, because actually you understand how the whole system works. And once you understand how the system works, because you see it with your own eyes, you realise what's really fucking going on.
So how did you feel about that? Like once you got into group, you went into your squadron. I mean, what was your specialist? What troop were you?
Well, mobility.
Mobility. Oh, yeah. So you got to play with all the big toys.
Yeah. I really enjoyed it. Yeah, it was good. I actually wanted to do boat, weirdly.
Did you?
Even though I was Halo trained from PF.
Yeah.
Obviously, great that I had that PF experience with mobility from when I was doing PF on the tours and obviously REME, but I actually wanted to do the boat thing. I don't know why.
Yeah. Did you get to do any?
I did get to do a few boat stuff and sub stuff and everything else that you did. Realised it was fucking gopping.
Yeah.
Yeah. Still love that. Don't you? I think, again, it's just being able to do something you haven't done, you know?
It gives you that blended experience.
It's a great place to be, and for many reasons, it's a great place to be because, well, as you know, you've worked within the group. Is being privy to that larger strategic piece, having, you know, a buzz term, strategic effect on the ground, and knowing that you can contribute bigger, and the fact that you get to do some cool shit with some cool people.
You do,
you know,
yeah,
and that's what's mega about it. You know, when you are there, everything becomes very normal. It's very normal. The crazy shit you do and the crazy shit you're involved in is something, you know, they obviously clearly make movies out of this and everything else, but it's weird how it very, very quickly becomes normal.
That's
and
right.
Actually, it's only since I've left, then looking back, I've gone, that was fucking mental.
It becomes more difficult when you go back to a green unit. Like when you've been immersed into that environment where 1 minute you're sitting here like we are now having a chat, then your pager goes off and half an hour later, you know, the helo's landing, you're off to Bryce and doing whatever you're doing, you know, or you go down the range, but then you want to nip down a shop, so you just stick your weapon in the boot of the car, think no more of it or whatever. And then you go back and you do that in a green unit. Oh my God, you know, you're getting hung out, or everything's just so much more regimented again and ranks and structure. And you think, oh, this isn't what I signed up.
Yeah, cool. Well, that's it, isn't it? I mean, you know, they are two different beasts and they need to be different beasts for those reasons.
They do.
You know, horses for courses as well. But obviously it is unfortunate for those guys who do have to rotate back through and leave there. But it's a short period in your life, really. And, you know, now leaving, it's important to now develop.
That's right.
You know, what you're doing on the outside and what you can set up for when you leave and see where it goes from there, you know.
We were chatting earlier, weren't we? And we're talking about, you know, mental resilience and, you know, mental health at the moment and stuff like that. You've had like an amazing sort of military career, haven't you? You know, joined the Parachute Regiment, 2nd Battalion, the Parachute Regiment, you know, transferred over to the REME, then the Pathfinders, and then, you know, pass selection and served with 2-2. How do you think, like, obviously your upbringing as a pad sprat, if you like, going to a military school and that set you up well for that successful career that you had?
Yeah, 100%. I think mostly because of that age that we're in. As I said earlier, I think being sporty, being the chance to be outside a lot. I think you want that.
Yeah.
And I think you're only going to get that in certain specialist unit. You obviously have to do your time in each one of these locations. I went to the REME because, as I said, nothing was happening in the brigade at the time. And the REME guys all looked like they were really good on the piss. They were amazing on the piss. And I mean, they were fit, they were dedicated and hardworking, but they were on the piss. And at that time in my life,
That's what you wanted to do.
I needed to be on the piss. I needed to be living
living
life. But 100%. I think all of that fits in. Just going to the mental health and stuff is I think one of the military hides. The military is a great place because it can mask a lot of shit. It can keep your mind active and it can keep you busy because you're enjoying life. For some boys and girls who've had a shit childhood, some boys and girls who didn't get what they wanted to achieve, you join the military, it gives you a second opportunity at either a life that you didn't get to have before, or a career, or a chance for a different vocation or whatever, qualifications, etc. So for some people, certainly in the ORs who didn't do particularly well at school, gives them an opportunity to still get a good wage, to travel, to do some cool shit. Obviously, for officers who are well educated, it gives them a chance for adventure and all the other bits and pieces that they want in their lives. What the military does do, it kind of takes you out of the real world a little bit. So it takes you into this sort of false sense of security where you're now with a group of people who are like-minded. You're definitely getting paid. You're definitely getting fed. Definitely got a roof over your head, and you get to do cool shit with very little care because you're that age in your life, right? And obviously that's more compounded because actually you definitely don't have to have the normal daily troubles that someone of your same age would do in the civvy street because you don't have to worry about rent too much and all that sort of stuff. Obviously, when you come out the other end of that,
institutionalized.
Massively. I say it quite a lot. You're institutionalized because you're institutionalized as a child from a family grouping or whatever, good or bad. You're then in the military, you're institutionalized. And then when you come out the other side of it, you're now in the real world. You have to contribute back into society, but you're at an age where your body's different. You're older, you're fatter, you've fucking got less hair, you've got...
All right, why are you looking at me? Okay.
Is this what Ed thinks something? That's what it goes. You've got all these things that are absolutely different. Your kids are growing up. You're probably on maybe even your second marriage, all these things. You're not as fast as you used to be. All these things that you probably were when you peaked in your 20s. And you see it with a lot of these veterans who become career veterans, right? They're working for different charities, or they're there at all the reunions with all the stuff on. They weren't any, I say this, half of them weren't any good when they were in. Then they still try and reflect this idea, this sort of, it's almost like Fonzie, like Fonzie's still the cool kid, but he's now in his 40s hanging around with 20-year-olds. It's that sort of, you're trying to hang on to this idea.
That is true.
But actually when you're out and go back to the labels, people are trying to put a label on, why do I feel like this? Why am I, is this depression? Is it because of what I've done? Arguably, the percentage of people who've actually seen real combat in the military is quite low, really, because the way the operational rotation happens, the way people come in and out of service at different times, and obviously the jobs and things they did. So you can't necessarily say your PTSD's from real combat. For the percentage. But what happens is you've got charities like Combat Stress and other people who make a living out of working with people with mental health and PTSD. And it was also very trendy for a period of time. And it took away PTSD from people who've really got it. And we see people who've got childhood trauma that was PTSD, and then they weren't in the military, it was hidden, and then it comes out and now they're dealing with this shit that they never had to really face when they're in the military.
That's right. Because they locked it up for 20 years.
100%. And your brain's very good at that. Your brain is designed to look after number one. Regardless if you've got kids. Different for women because they've got inherent instinct to protect. But men are a little bit different. We have to build bonds and we have to understand who we're trying to protect. But your brain's very good at looking after you. So what happens is when you deal with mass trauma, your brain will go and compartmentalize that and process that somewhere. But eventually it comes out in different ways. So your brain is dealing with this trauma. So a lot of times when people are saying, I've got PTSD, I've got this, I've got all these issues. Well, actually, no, your brain's just dealing with the shit. It's dealing with that. And your brain's very good at processing that. And it's dealing with that, and it's dealing with all these adjustments. But what you don't know is, because you've got consciousness, is your consciousness is fighting with your subconsciousness. So you're kind of working out, why is that I feel? And then we've got people, we're in the military, we're in Afghanistan, PTSD.
Yeah. Yeah, let's stick it in the box. Okay, we can.
So as it goes back to labels, now you've got people, I've got a fucking label.
Yeah.
We have it in here before. People come in straight away, they tell you they've got PTSD the moment they come in. Because someone told them
they share that with you straight away.
Yeah, and you probably find that, but
it's like a badge.
It's not a knock on them. That's what they're being told.
Yeah.
I think going back to, I've said this before as well, is I think many people from my background, we're very good at processing. Our brains work like that. I'd say 70% of people from my background, our brains are able to process the operational, the threat, the risk. And most of us sleep very soundly at night because of it, because we understand the reason why and the effect and the cause of effect and everything else. And you find that there's probably less mental health issues for people who leave our organizations leaving than there are in bigger institutional organizations where they're templated and they're structured. Because already we're understanding, we're used to change. We're used to different environments. We're different used to that. So, I think there are less people from the backgrounds. And what you actually find is some of the guys and girls from an SF background, some of the trauma that's coming out afterwards is mostly from childhood trauma or other effects.
Interesting you say that. A number of people, like within group, when he talks, they say, obviously there are some of the guys that have got bad PTSD, but a lot of the time it's manifesting itself after they've left the service. Like you said just now, people put it down to something that happened in Afghan, Iraq, or another operational theatre, but it actually goes 20 years before that. I think you just amplified what they've said, and I think that people probably need to look into that more. But maybe that doesn't suit some of the charities and some of their agendas, the way they operate.
People are making lots and lots of money out of
it.
There's
and that's what it comes down to
there as well. And
yeah,
and people are always looking for a reason why. And let's bring it back full circle here, is actually getting people on the piss together, getting people.
Yeah.
But at the same time, not too much, because we've got real lives to leave and responsibilities and other things to do. But I do think, something that me and Ed over there are working on at the moment is, we like a good beer and we like cider, and that's something that we're trying to work on. Is we know actually it's a great way of getting good people together,
like-minded people.
And just have fun again. Real world, kind of life stuff, which means that people have got to talk and communicate and socialize
and not worry about saying something, and
and not live in a world that's false, and you've sort of created these sort of false things online and these false personas.
End up getting cancelled for just speaking what 99% of people think.
Or also that you think of also the anxiety that online's issue that's creating is because now you have a persona that you believe you are online. You're now faced with other people who you see look like they're doing amazing things. We've got a great space here at HR4K. We are doing some amazing things, but fucking if you peel it back, we're trying to pay bills, we're trying to put food on the table. It's fucking hard. But people would compare themselves to this. People say, "Oh, Ben, you look like you're smashing it." We look like we're smashing it because it's a marketing tool.
Yeah, exactly.
But actually, we're in the same boat as everyone else, and everyone's just working hard.
Yeah. We're all swans, aren't we? We look all graceful and cool above water, but below the surface, our feet are scrabbling
One of them's on
around.
Mile an hour.
It's a bit of a segue there. So we'll just sort of finalise on. So how long did you do in the military?
23 years.
Was it proper whack? What'd you leave as?
Staff sergeant.
Yeah.
That would be a second career, because obviously I left the Green Army as a sergeant.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Got you. And then a lot of people leave. How did you find that sort of transition into civilian life? Did you struggle with anything from like military service, like from a mental point?
I'm a bluffer, because really, to be fair, I get to still do the stuff that I enjoyed, which was the social aspect.
Yeah.
So actually, really, I haven't really transitioned. I'd lie if I said I have, because I've really thought about this recently. And we help and support transition. As you know, we work with a number of organisations to help people get jobs, and we help. We've created this place as a sense of escapism, so people come in and feel like a rock star and just chill out and meet up with your mates and stuff. So we're very much involved in the transition, and we help with that, and we're very open about that. we are certainly not a welfare drop-in station and a veteran dripping station. As we said, there's some great organisations for that. We are, a form of escapism, and that's what I'm living that now. I get to keep everything I enjoyed about the military, which for me was the people and the people I hung around with and the stuff we did. I know full well I can't do that job again. I know full well I've left that job. So it's not the job I miss. And I'd argue for everyone else, it wasn't the job that they miss. What they missed is probably purpose and the people they had around.
Yeah.
For me, I've got purpose because I've got to keep this going. I've got livelihoods to keep going. I've got food to put on the table for my staff and everything else. I've got purpose. I've got drive because we need to grow this to keep going. But ultimately, I've still got the same people that I enjoyed to socialise with when I was in that I've got here. Yeah.
I mean, you left the military yesterday, Martin, didn't you? That was like your last day. And handed his ID card in yesterday. It's his birthday today. Best birthday present ever. You're now like Crow. Aren't you? But what do you think you're going to miss?
I mean, obviously, exactly what you touched on there, Ben, having the same like-minded people around, maybe, the Christmas mess do or something like that, but being involved with, the charity that we're involved in, they're like-minded people, these are some of the lads that are, lads and girls that are, involved in the charity. They've had a pretty hard time as well. So when we all get together and we have like the charity yearly dinner night or whatever, I think that will fill that void for me. So, I haven't got any concerns. So
I don't think you should.
And I know I could, at any point pick the phone up and say, Ben, I'm going to come down for a brew, and I won't come here and drip or anything, but you're coming into this. So, and it's like going in the mess, isn't it, I guess? Or you've got all your memorabilia up and, you've got your merch and stuff like that, which is great. And we'll touch on that shortly. So yeah, I don't think I've got any.
I think from what you just said, then you've got purpose. So you've got purpose, not only, it's a given, obviously your family's purpose. That's 100%. That's never changed.
They're the rock, aren't they?
Yeah, but you've got purpose. So you drive the charities, that gives you direction. You've got to get a job and you've got to reintegrate. I do say that there is an arrogance of some soldiers that they're reluctant to integrate and they believe that everyone knows them.
Yeah.
No, that's absolutely wrong. But yeah, I think actually having those like-minded people around you. Remember, when you were in the military, you were forced to socialise with people that normally you wouldn't naturally socialise.
Absolute spanners.
So you end up levitating towards people of like-minded ilk. And I think if you keep those friends going forward, that's always going to be your rock.
Yeah.
Some people, as I said before, some people did peak when they're in, so the only thing they're hanging on to, but they really need to try and reintegrate. But on that, you're leaving at a great time. You left at the end of your career.
Yeah.
You've got to remember there are people who didn't have that opportunity. Some people were forced to leave, and you can see why there is massive angst in that, because actually the choice was taken away from them.
Yeah.
Where for you, and
I've left on my terms.
And you've left. And I think, I don't know if it's the same, but I left because I felt like I felt like I was no longer contributing. And that was the same as you get to a point where, yes, you probably could go the TA route, you could do this, but if you don't feel like you've got something to give in that world, you've got to reappoint that energy into something else.
Yeah.
Like Pilgrim Bandits.
Exactly.
And obviously the stuff you've done with Scotties and stuff.
Yeah. I think, so you left, were you doing anything business-wise before you left? Or, so you've been in the military, being a paid member of society, and now you've actually got to earn your own wage. Yeah. So did you set up HR4K?
Yeah, I did when I was in.
Yeah.
I was running this out of my garage, yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me. Most of the blokes are, isn't it? Everyone's got 2-3 different side gigs on the go.
I think some people need to be involved in multiple things.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, you should do one on Ed sometime. A guy runs a farm, his own cider company, involved with HR4K and then finances. Yeah. Same, I think when you're certainly in the unit, there are times where you don't necessarily doing stuff all the time.
Yeah.
I talked about being number 1 and number 2 on the T-urns. Sometimes you're number 2 on the T-urns, right? So there's a lot of downtime and not doing anything. Number 1 T-urns, you've actually got a job to do. So it was, I need something to fill that gap, and that gap needed something that I felt like I was in control of and I had something to do. Some people take up hobbies, some people take up, fishing, mountain biking, whatever. For me, I liked the idea of business and I liked the idea of producing something that reflected my personality and what I was involved in.
And that's when you created HR4K?
Yeah, well, actually, I was doing all kinds of random shit before that. I was doing a bit of procurement, designed some belt kit called FCSR, which I did with a brand called Pilgrim. And then I've done a number of little bits and pieces. It was only when it became quite fashionable for a lot of these sort of American veteran brands, and we jumped on that quite quickly.
Like the Black Rifles.
Yeah, because we were wearing, that's the stuff we wore. That was our culture, So, I started selling that, and then it got to a point where I wanted to do my own stuff, which is very difficult because now you've got to restart something from the ground up.
Yeah. Learn your mistakes.
Yeah, and I made loads,
Yeah, I mean, I think anyone who says they get it right first time's lying.
Yeah, 100%.
It's a difficult journey, but I think that's what makes you unique, because you learn from that. You use that sort of background of sort of accepting that failure is going to happen.
But you're also lucky because you're still getting paid, you've still got a roof over your head, and you've got,
that's right,
if you need
got that safety net for a few more months.
So I always say, for anyone looking to leave, before you leave, try and build what you're doing while you're in, so you can make the mistakes without the financial burden of that.
Yeah, don't put the house at risk, because the minute you're out, no one's looking out for you.
No.
The army don't care.
Yeah.
You can't call the padre.
No, exactly. Yeah, yeah. Obviously I was on a good wedge when I was in. That dropped off. God knows, it was horrendous.
So how's this business been for you? I mean, tell everyone about HR4K, what it is, what you do, what you offer.
This HR4K, to be honest, it's a little bit of smoke and mirrors here. So we've created a place where on the front of it, we can all come and enjoy it and create that escapism, and we can promote things that people are interested in. But what we are actually doing is creating a networking hub. Yep. That's what we are. We're creating a space, a neutral space where people from different backgrounds can come in and find commonality in things from rock music, beer, fitness, MMA, jiu-jitsu, whatever, the pastimes, tattoos.
Yeah.
Those sort of subcultures that everyone likes and spans across multiple demographics. And then by meeting people from different backgrounds, we can find the wants and needs of each other. So whether it's work, whether it's projects, whether it's meeting another half, I don't know, whatever those things are that fill those voids that we're looking for, that purpose, that direction. Obviously we do it because we pick up the gap. So we use our networks to hook people up, and through that we would get finder's fees. We help with procurement. So we deal with that. Obviously we help people build their brands and build their businesses, and everything from, our jiu-jitsu club and functional fitness. We've got just short of 400 members, and we did that within a year. Wow. Each one of them have got their own story. Each one of them have got their own jobs. Each one of them have got their own lives. And through that, by mixing that, we're not only we're keeping tabs on people to make sure everyone's okay, and we're building these communities, not institutions. We're building communities, not institutions. That should be very clear. We're also in a position to help people and get people what they may need, So I think it's good.
Great hub.
Yeah. It's difficult because it's not like you're not selling a product. Yeah. You haven't got a clear line of direction as a business model. So what we have is we have a number of, as Ed's told me recently, verticals. So we have a number of elements of the business. So we've got the print house where we can produce and help people grow their brands and their products. We've got the jiu-jitsu and the gym where obviously we pick up membership fees. And then we've got the shops on the army camps where we can get maybe a bit of a steady income for a period of time of the year when the soldiers are in the camps. And then obviously, again, everything kind of mutually supports each other.
Yeah. It's quite important. What you've done there, you've actually built a layered business, because you just rely on one dynamic income stream. That can soon drop off. In whatever business it is, and if all your eggs are in that one basket, it can soon go. So I think the lesson in what you've seen, because obviously there'll be parts of the business, there'll be quiet months for everything, but at least you know that some part of the business will prop up the other. And I think it's an important lesson that people understand when they're getting out of the military, is just don't rely on one sort, just explore what's out there. Don't just get stuck in a dead end job. If you don't enjoy it, look elsewhere. And every time I sort of see you on social media, on Instagram, Ben Garwood, you're always up to something. It's brilliant to see. You got the logos, the badge for the new SEER badge, which is sort of you promoted the other day.
The SEER schools, we're helping build their PRI shop, which is great because that means it's something that helps them build themselves up and gives them some ethos within their own brand. So many people have done SEER. They have like 3,000 people go through their courses a year. They've never really had an identity. As I said in the post, we're not giving them a qualification badge. We're giving them this is a unit badge.
Yeah.
Everyone can identify with that. So again, that's that really good ethos. And we're seeing people who did the LERP school from back in the day still going into it.
In Bavaria or Germany, wasn't it, back in the day? Yeah.
So there's lots of people who are sort of buying. Obviously, it's multinational tri-services. There's lots of people on there. Yeah, I think also having these, Patrol's the big brand that we're sort of working on at the moment.
Got some cool stuff as well, Ben.
Yeah, thank you.
T-shirts are mega.
Well, if anyone watching on the video, you're wearing the Patrol gilet.
Yeah.
I want to take them all. They look. I love a gilet. I think all the blokes wear gilets now, don't they? It's like the latest thing.
The idea behind the brand, it was something we had an idea. I wanted to build almost. I like shooting. I like fishing. I'm never going to be climbing up. Yeah, I'm never going to be climbing up the north face of the Eiger or whatever. I'm not going to be doing that.
No.
There's a market for that kit and equipment. I'm not doing that. I need something to put on when I, have to go put the chickens away in the middle of the night or let the dog out while it's pissing down outside.
It's functional, but also fashionable.
Yeah, or going to watch the kid play rugby on a Sunday.
Yeah.
I want something that I can wear down the pub, or I can wear working in the garden.
Yeah.
But it's quality gear, but it's affordable.
Yeah.
And I think in this current climate at the moment, we just don't have that disposable income, but we still want nice things, and we still want tribalism, so we still want to identify that we belong in something, and something that reflects what your interests and what your passions are. So that's what Patrol is very much on. So that's one of the big brands. The stuff that myself and Ed are working on at the moment is ground hammer. So we won't go into detail on that. There's lots and lots of layers in that at the moment, but essentially we're working with a team that are running the gym and building that community and those foundations to give us legitimacy in the jiu-jitsu and the functional fitness and MMA world, as well as obviously what we're doing with other elements of ground hammer. So we're really trying to build that as a brand. And if we get it right, then, hopefully we can create lots of jobs and, we can kind of go some places with it. So going back to kind of a point you were saying there is where you sort of see me on these different things. I don't label myself as ADHD. I probably am. I don't label myself as
exactly. That was.
Yeah, but I need creative output. We all do in different things.
It's not ADHD though, is it?
No,
I just think that is you've got some drive. You want to just make the most out of life. You're
100%.
Enthusiastic. You've got energy. Yeah. So to me, that's just normal. That's just how everything is. I don't want to be sitting down just watching Netflix. I want to be out there creating something, having some fun, having a bit of a laugh and a joke, making a few bob. And that for me is just normal. For someone else, that's like you're special.
100%. And it's not the cash, it's not the money that's because if it did, I'm clearly not. It's not about that. I'm in a very fortunate position that I have the freedom to be able to create. And hopefully there are certain, as I said, those arms, those verticals that we're creating that other people can identify with as well and enjoy. And if you can do that, great.
Yeah.
It's not going to be for everyone, but it would.
So have you found your happy place?
Yeah. We're getting there. I think I am not going to keep driving and have this idea that I'm going to be in the grave and I'm not going to spend time with the kids and the missus because I'm too busy focused on that. I am trying to get a happy medium, but it's very difficult.
It is difficult.
It is very difficult.
Yeah. I think that is one thing I'd say to you, Martin. You're at this point, you've just left the military, and to anyone who's listening to this, don't be quick to jump into another career straight away. Obviously you've got to get an income. I get it. But, if you can spend some time with the kids after they haven't really seen you and the wife, just do that for a few months. Go on that holiday you want to do, don't do what so many people did. I did, I left and then went straight into another job. And I think, I've just missed this opportunity. It's almost like you're getting your gap year again when you leave university or something. You get that opportunity to go and enjoy life before you got to become an adult, be a kid again. And
I was lucky. I got at the start of lockdown, so it was lucky and shit.
Yeah.
So I got out, started lockdown, hoping to go into a number of businesses that we'd sort of set up. And sadly, I either had people that didn't pull their weight in some of those businesses, or I got kicked out of some of the other ones.
Yeah.
So, or not kicked out, but it didn't really work out for me. So everything that I got out for crumbled. The only thing I had was just this place. But what I did have was lockdown. And lockdown, we had the most amazing spring into summer. My kids were at home. I just got into a new house. We had a decent garden. We live in the middle of nowhere, which is quite nice. So I had so much opportunity to spend some time with the kids in the garden, do some, obviously we chinned homeschooling right off, and it was good because the kids are at an age they don't need to be doing, what they need to be doing is playing and getting dirty and stuff.
Yeah.
So I think I did have that gap year.
Yeah.
And then obviously straight after that, when everything got tight, it was fucking what a pain,
It was difficult, wasn't it? I think some people, lockdown was actually a great life reset. They got to spend that time.
Yeah, but
it was pretty shit for a lot of people, but you can't help everyone.
No.
I think you just got to take what you can out of life.
I set up my inflatable jacuzzi and, sat in the garden and just chilled and stared up to the nice blue skies, like you said.
Yeah, it was fucking amazing, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
With your free electric that the army were giving you.
Yeah.
So get that jacuzzi on 40 degrees 24/7.
We were talking about this earlier, weren't we? It wasn't sort of connected to the main infrastructure, so it was like a generator on camp or whatever, and the electricity was very cheap. I think for a whole year in that particular quarter that I was in, it was, I think, just over £100 for a whole year's worth of electricity.
Yeah.
And we had a jacuzzi on permanently for...
Yeah. Should have done a data mining while you were there.
Yeah, he'd done a load of Bitcoin as well while he was there.
Yeah, it would have been sensible.
Going back to the merchant stuff then, Ben, where can, people listening to this, watching it on online, where can they sort of look to get some of this?
So online, it's called Patrol Goods. For patrol, I got Patrol Goods. You can Google that. HR4K, you can Google that, will come up. Yeah. And then for the jiu-jitsu and the BJJ, MMA, and the functional fitness, if anyone finds themselves passing through Hereford, then again, just Google Ground Hammer TC.
Drop in.
Yeah, drop in, come and enjoy it. And I mean, the level of coaching in there it's top notch.
Yeah.
These guys are absolutely at the top of their game, and they work with a lot of other people. So what they're not doing is they don't become the proverbial self-licking lollipop. That by working with other people, they're making sure that they're, staying on top of their game. They're learning all the time, and they're obviously giving that to the students as well.
Staying current.
And it's good. There's no bullshit. There's no, the coaches deliver, students go, enjoy, members go, enjoy it, gone. We don't get involved in the other crap. You go in, you get what you're paying and what you're enjoying to.
That's what you want.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Again, we're trying to make that community, not an institution, and that's what that place needs to be. It has to be, everyone's together, enjoy this, get what you want out of it, go. Not get in here.
Yeah.
Comes a little bit. It's great. It's you get in there, you get what you want and go. So all the brands, they're all sort of overlapping and look at each other. So
you're creating a real community.
Yeah.
I think you've done fantastically well. From an outsider, obviously I've been here for a brew before. I know a few of the guys, but seeing it from the outside and actually coming in here now and talk to you about it, it's all genuine.
Thank you.
All a lot of love sort of being passed around. I think it's great. You're smashing it. It's not easy, but I think I'd just say from us, we really, thanks for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
But Martin's gonna.
Yeah, we've got.
Come on, he's got his favourite question.
So grab bag. So that, 3 items, must haves. What would your 3 items be?
You can't do product placement here.
No.
Yeah.
3 items, grab bag on the go. Obviously, we're taking out obviously the crap about. This is where your head goes mental here. This is where I'd be like, passport, everything else. I think, obviously, for me as a grab bag, it would be Lofty Wiseman's Survival Handbook, pen knife, and some string.
Interesting.
That's what I think.
Pen knife's up there quite a lot. Lofty Wiseman's, God, I haven't heard that name for a while.
Yeah.
A lot of people say pen knife.
I've ever read.
And there's
got to the end of, got good photos on it.
There's been loads of good advice through one of the other questions was service leaver one, but you've chucked loads of stuff in there, Ben. Thanks. From myself as well. I know Adam's thanked you.
No, to be honest, mate, it's a new chapter in your life. I think you got to really enjoy it. And also, I say this a lot as well, is look, we've never been in a better position to get all the support we need as leavers. We've got our own regimental associations and charities. We've got lots of charities that are out there for support. You've got your own governmental support that's there. You've built up a whole, you know, God knows how many people you've met through your careers who are your friends you can reach out to. And obviously, you know, most of us are very lucky with our health as well. So there really is, I think some people are just very unlucky if they find themselves in a position that they can't enjoy a new chapter in their lives, right? Make the most of it.
That stigma that, you know, it's not okay to, you know, reach out and ask for, you know, a bunker. You know, there are people out there that are struggling, but they don't need to be. You know, you hit the nail on the head.
There isn't an ism or a illness or ailment that there isn't an association or a charity designed for it.
They're there, aren't they?
Yeah, it's okay to not be okay. Just speak out. And reach out to the blokes, even if you don't know them. That's the great thing about the brotherhood, the military sort of communities. You talk to someone, you're all like-minded, and you'll just help each other. You see it on Facebook on various posts. People just jump in, they want to help you.
Yeah.
They're not insular.
No, give back.
Well, I think, appreciate your time today, Ben. Martin,
quite impulsive, this one. Well, actually, when you said, we'll come down and talk about the podcast, I was like, well, like today. I thought you were like, actually going to go, right. Well,
no, we've done it, but that's the best one, isn't it? Ad hoc. Just get in there, talk about it. It's a bit of a longer one, so I think they might have to put us into bite-sized chunks. But but the long-form podcasts are the great ones.
Don't listen to it on long drives or working with heavy machinery.
You might fall asleep.
Exactly. But if you're cold, there's loads of great gear here, so come down, grab some. I think we're going to leave with a few bits.
Yeah, probably sure.
Well, you got your pension to smash.
Wicked. Hey,
great,
guys.
Thank you, mate.
Thank you very much. Cheers. Thank you, everybody. Cheers, mate.
Well, that's the end of that episode with Ben Garwood of HR4K. Hope you enjoyed it as much as we did recording it. Martin and I must have spent the whole day up there in the end, because such a great showroom he's got there in Hereford. So pop on in if you're ever in the area, pick up some merchandise for the patrol and the HR4K branding, or just get a nice brew, just go there and have a chill out. If you've got any questions off the back of this one, feel free to DM or reach out to us on Instagram and all the usual channels. We hope you enjoyed the show. We've got more episodes coming up. We're recording them weekly and releasing them. If there's anyone you want to see on the show, why not sort of drop us a note and we'll see if we can get them on. Ask us any questions. Again, we can add them into the episode. So if there's anything you want to know of particular guests or any queries you have, send them our way and we'll see what we can do. As always, little sort of appeal out to everyone just to leave some feedback. If you're on Apple Podcasts, pop down and hit the subscriber button on there and leave a star rating. Same on YouTube and Spotify. But for now, that's the end of this episode. Enjoy the rest of your week.